On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we look towards the NHL season and we start by prepping ourselves by previewing some players. And today's episode, we're talking about Nikita Kucherov.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're talking about player previews, and most importantly, we are starting our player previews by talking about Nikita Kucherov. But before we get started, I want to remind you that this episode of Locked On Lightning is brought to you by our friends over at Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter the promo code Locked On NHL for a free water bottle with any order. You won't want to take your Birddogs off, we promise you. So we're looking towards with closing in really on 30 days on the NHL season starting, which is it's crazy how, and I'm seeing a lot of these memes out there where it's I think it's like June or July through September. It's like, I can't wait for the NHL season. And then it's like cut to October, and it's like, I can't believe we can't get the effing puck out of the zone. And that's probably going to be me all season. And that was me all season, really last year and really the last couple of years, even in the good years where the Lightning were winning cups. But as we did at the conclusion of the NHL season, we did player reviews. So if you missed out on that, go ahead and go back to our YouTube page or wherever you listen to us on any platform. You can go back and listen to those reviews. And definitely, I think that would be a cool thing to do. Listen to the reviews and then listen to the previews. So definitely want to see how things, well, mostly how I've changed. My state of mind has changed over the summer when it comes to expectations with these players. So we're looking at, obviously, I think, in my opinion, the heart and soul of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that is our friend Nikita Kucherov. So just to refresh ourselves, I know it's been a long summer, but kind of refreshing ourselves on what Kuch did last year. First of all, can't believe it, even every time I look at it. 82 games played for our friend Kuch, and that was something that we have stressed, or I have stressed at least, over the last couple of seasons, really emphasized since we started this podcast, that this guy needs to play more games and needs to stay healthy, because it's kind of getting to a point, and I kind of feel the same way about Braden Point, who we'll actually be talking about that on the next episode, so definitely don't want to miss that. We need this guy to be in the lineup every single day. And, it's great when he comes back from a long layoff because of surgery or injury, whatever the case may be, and he's lighting up the world. I mean, just to put in perspective, last 2 seasons ago during 21-22, he played 47 games and he had 25 goals and 69 points. Okay. And then 82 games last season, 30 goals and 113 points. Finished 12th in the Hart Trophy voting, which, you could kind of complain about that if you want to, but at the same time, I mean, you look at the rest of the league, that just shows you how talented everybody else is, and just that can't compete with 50 and 60 goal seasons and 100 and whatever points Connor McDavid had last year. But still, when Nikita Kucherov does that, when he plays an 82 game season, that is something that the Lightning desperately need and have needed for quite some time. So definitely a optimistic thing, and a very optimistic thing to look forward to as, we get into this new season. And say what you want, Kuch is just turned 30, so let's not call him old. Let's not call him young. He's kind of in that sweet spot of his career where I think we still get his prime for probably, I would say 35, and then you really start to see some chips in the armor. But it differs with every player. But I think, yeah, we're going to start with what we expect, or I guess our wishful thinking for the NHL season would be he needs to play an 82 game season, because even when he's not producing points, which is on most nights a common thing, I think that really his presence, as we've talked about so much on this podcast, and I've spoken about on other podcasts as well, his presence on the ice alone is enough to give the Lightning the edge in a game. And what I mean by that, if you're new to the party or new to the podcast, is that Nikita Kucherov is such a dynamic player. He could score, he could facilitate, he could hurt you basically in a lot of ways, especially in the offensive zone. And he's just such a smart player. I mean, if you look at a lot of his assists, where he's the primary assist guy, it's kind of the equivalent would be in basketball, where you're driving down the lane and you go for the layup, and last minute you dish it off to the big guy or to the other player on your team that's on the other side of the basket up for the alley oop. It's kind of what he does, is the hockey equivalent, especially when he's down in the low slot and he dishes it off to Braden Point or Steven Stamkos in the circle. I mean, you could see it, like I said, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just look at his highlights. Take, pause real quick and look at his highlights. His ability to make the other five guys on the ice on the opposing team gravitate towards him and draw the attention towards him is really uncanny. There's really only a few players out there in the league that really have that kind of power to do that. Connor McDavid obviously is one of them. I mean, you look at Nathan McKinnon as well. I guess David Pastrnak is another one too. And I mean, you could even at this stage in his career, you could even throw Alexander Ovechkin into that equation. I mean, even Austin Matthews as well. I mean, what I'm saying is that, there is something to be said about that. Even if it doesn't always result in a goal scored, it makes the other team think. And what you see, whether it's over the course of a game or over the course of the season, especially when they're playing divisional foes, is that what he'll do is he'll kind of almost play around with it. There'll be other times, and we could see, I mean, the 30 goals, they pretty much tell you everything you need to know. And you look at his goal totals on a yearly basis, he's kind of hovering around the 35 mark. I would say probably that's around his average, the rough estimation that I'm giving it right now. But he's one of those players where I firmly believe if he were to just completely concentrate on scoring goals, Nikita Kucherov could most definitely go out there and score 45, 50. But he doesn't need to do that. And he knows his role. And he knows that at the end of the day, yeah, he go out there, score 50 goals, maybe get to, because his point total will probably go down a little bit. It would probably go down, and I'm not going to get into the what ifs really closely here, but probably that would be a little bit lower, probably 85, maybe 90. But at the end of the day, talent, just dishing the puck to his teammates, and there's enough weapons on this team that really he doesn't need to fill that role as primary goal scorer. But we'll talk about a lot about the other stuff, about how, sometimes that's not always a good thing, about how he really wants to just pass the puck all the time. It's like I've always kind of equated it to was whether I've said it on air or not is if Alexander Ovechkin kind of just went from shooting 5 shots a game to 2, 3, and was because as we all know as well, if you watch Alexander Ovechkin, he's kind of the same way. He could pass. He's a very good passer. He just prefers to shoot as much as he humanly can throughout the course of a game. And I feel like Kuch could do that. I mean, they obviously don't have the same skill set, but at the same time, his ability to score is really, I think, underestimated and undervalued. Uh, when fans who don't watch him on a nightly basis watch him, whether it's because they're playing against his team or they just tune in to really, watch the Lightning because Lightning are always making headlines. But yeah, I just think that that was a good start there. We're just kind of laying it out for the new listeners as well. I know it's that time of year we get a lot of new listeners, new fans as well, wanting to jump in, get a preview of the players. If you're a new listener or a new fan of Tampa Bay Lightning or to hockey, be sure to reach out to me if you want to know more about certain players, certain things that I may have not been able to get to on these player previews, because we will be doing these previews all the way up till the beginning of the regular season. So you definitely want to be in the know and definitely want to continue to learn more about certain players on these teams as we do our deep dives and dedicating whole episodes to them. So we'll continue talking about Nikita Kucherov, expectations, really, more so predictions, if you really want to call it that. We'll talk about that as well. But first, I want to talk about our friends and partners over at Birddogs. Now, if you haven't had or ever heard of Birddogs, listen, they just sent me a new pair of shorts, a couple of pairs of pants. Absolutely love them. They are, I'm, you can't really see them with the way of the camera. I'm actually wearing the pants right now, but they're phenomenal khaki shorts that stretch and are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. If you've been working on your legs all summer long and you really want to show it with the shorts or with the pants, guess what? These are the pants and shorts for you. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. So go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl or enter the promo code lockedonnhl at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnhl for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. So as always, I'm going to thank all of our listeners and those of you that are watching on our YouTube page for making us your first listen, your first watch of the day. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast. We are on the cusp. I think we were getting close to 700. I think we broke 600 at the beginning of the summer or at some point in July. But as we get closer to that coveted 1,000 subscription mark, once we do that, we are going to be running a lottery or a raffle or whatever you want to call it. But you have to be subscribed to our YouTube channel. And what we'll be raffling off is a signed Tampa Bay Lightning puck signed by one of the greatest players in franchise history, and that is Vincent Lecavalier. So we'll be providing more information about that as we get closer to 1,000 subscriptions on our YouTube page. So you definitely don't want to miss out on that. So we just got done talking about how, basically more so his qualities, Nikita Kucherov, and that's the thing. I think that is going to frustrate a lot of Lightning fans, whether you're a newcomer or you've been watching this team for years, is that as soon as you know what the guy could do, what he's capable of, especially the scoring aspect, scoring goals, it's going to frustrate you a ton when he is shooting 2 to 3 shots per night, or just doesn't turn it on until the third period, which is something that has really struggled. I think he has really struggled with over the last couple of years. There are nights where he looks like he's the best player in the league, and then there are weeks where you really don't necessarily notice him. And that's a weird thing to say about one of your best players and one of the best players in the league, um, where he really goes, and it's usually against kind of the tougher teams, not so much like the Maple Leafs or the Bruins, but I've seen it a lot more so in games against those lower tier tough teams like those Red Wings, those Senators, those teams that the Lightning have kind of struggled against over the last couple of years, and that those are the games where I really think that he needs to dictate the energy. He needs to bring the energy and really bring the pace for the Lightning, because those are the games I feel like the Lightning are more so kind of asleep at the wheel. And this doesn't just go for divisional foes, but just because the Lightning play these teams more often, and we're a lot more familiar with them as opposed to playing the Coyotes or Vancouver Canucks or a Flyers team. I really think that the Lightning this year more than ever with Stamkos kind of, I think this is the year where you're going to see him kind of take a step back. Not so much in his production. I mean, he's still going to get his numbers, but you're going to see a lot more holes in his game and you're not going to see him, I think, as he's still going to be the captain. He's still going to play the leader, but I still think we're going to look at this year as maybe, the year that we start to see kind of the regime change for the Tampa Bay Lightning in terms of their leadership. But looking at Kuch, I just feel like that really he's going to need to kind of jump to the head of the line, and be more, I wouldn't say vocal, but kind of just really be the leader through his play. And that's not really something that we have seen quite a bit from him. I mean, we've seen clutch moments from Kucherov. We've seen him be able to get his teammates going, but we haven't really seen him a whole ton until kind of really it's too late in games. Really go out there and just grab the bull by the horns and say, whether to his teammates or just to himself, I got this. This is my game. And that's the frustrating thing. And I think that if he plays with that attitude, I don't think it's going to be every night because really not a lot of players could keep up that pace. There's only, I think, 3 players that could really do that on a nightly basis in the league. And fortunately, Kucherov isn't one of them, which is fine. I mean, like I said, he doesn't need to do it all because of what he has around him. But like I said, there are going to be nights where the Lightning are going to look to him, and Lightning fans are going to look at Kuch and say, "Come on, man, we need you." And if he does that, even if he gives 5% of that game changer attitude or play, he's still going to get his stats. I think that the Lightning will improve by probably 10 wins. But as for him, I think his stats will be a little bit better. I think that, especially if he starts off hot this year, I think that we could expect probably 45 goals from Kucherov. I think that's a good number. That would be a career high, by the way. And I think that this year with him playing, or hopefully, and this is wishful thinking, this goes back to the wishful thinking part, him playing on a line with Braden Point and Brandon Hagel instead of Steven Stamkos, I think that's going to add like another bullet in his gun. I mean, he's still going to have ice time with Stamkos, but I think Hagel, coming off of the year that he had last year, and him kind of settling into his role in Tampa Bay, that's going to, I think, change things to a degree where I think we could confidently say that this first line led by Kucherov, because he is going to quarterback that line. I mean, say what you want about Hedman being on the ice with him and puck handling and kind of taking control of things at the blue line. At the end of the day, when 86 has the puck, everyone is falling in line and allowing him to work his magic. I think having that weapon in Hagel is going to really, really help him out and allow him to kind of settle in a lot faster. Now, we're still not sure what John Cooper is going to do this upcoming season with the lineup changes. Like I've said on past episodes, we don't know, you know, he was not very good at changing things up when they needed to, and when he did, it wasn't for long. And I think that he's really going to need to do that this year and really stick to it, even if he doesn't like it off the bat. And I think that I don't think it was a Stamkos thing. I don't think Stamkos was saying, I want to play on the first line. I think it was more so Cooper thinking still that Stamkos can play first line minutes and play on the first line with Point and Kucherov. But now that, especially with the emergence of Hagel in the year that he had last year, I think that, like I said, Kuch is going to have a phenomenal year just because of that. Like I said, 45 goals, points, I would say 115. I don't think he's going to hit 120. The only time he ever hit the 120 mark was 18-19, where he won pretty much every award there is to win in the league. And I think that, though, 45 is a good number. And I think that, we'll talk about this when we talk about Hagel and Point. But I think that 45, if he's not a distraction now, teams are going to be worried even more when he is scoring at a high volume such as that. You're going to see Hagel's numbers go up. You're going to see Points numbers go up. You're going to see Paul's numbers. You're going to see, I think, a trickle-down effect for the Tampa Bay Lightning. As I said, Nikita Kucherov, not only a great goal scorer, but a very good teammate in the aspect that not only does he make himself better, but he makes everybody else on this team a whole lot better. So wrapping things up here on the show, like I said, as always, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. You can find us on Twitter or X, or Twitter, formerly X, formerly known as Twitter, whatever they call it these days, LO_Lightning, and Lockdown_Lightning on Instagram. You give me a follow on X, formerly known as Twitter, at DenkyDank, DenkyD8NK. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment below this video on YouTube as well. Or if you want to direct message me on Twitter, go ahead and do that as well. Looking forward to all of the interactions I'm having or going to have with you this upcoming season. I always love to hear from all of you. And even though, I don't get back to you as soon as possible, I do always end up responding to all messages that Lightning fans do send me. So yeah, this player preview segment, will continue it as we get ever closer to the NHL season. We'll be doing Braden Point next episode, and I think probably after that we'll do Andrei Vasilevsky. We'll shake it up a little bit. I know we did a little differently with the reviews at the end of the season, where we kind of went down the lines in order. I think we're just going to hop all over the place depending on, what tickles my fancy. So as always, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed. And join us next episode as we will talk about Braden Point. What do we expect him to do? Another 50 goal season, or are we going to expect something a little bit higher for Braden Point? So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.